So in the last video you will have had a look at how we add and subtract fractions that have got algebra in the numerator, and what we're building up to is using that to be able to solve these types of questions. So these questions come towards the end of exam papers and are usually worth about 4 marks. So it is really important that you're confident and capable when it comes to fractions with numbers, sort of numerical fractions, and then working up to the algebra ones. So let's have a look at this. I can see that I've got 2 fractions that are currently separate are equivalent to 4, and we're asked to solve it. So that means we need to try and write it as a single fraction to start with. So write that here. So write it as a single fraction. And then what we want to do is our usual rearranging to make x the subject and to work out what it is. So if we start off with the first part, I'm going to ignore the fact that it's equivalent to 4 right this second, and I'm just going to focus on adding these 2 fractions together. So if I think about 2 and 5, the lowest common multiple, that is the lowest number that those 2 both go into, so of 2 and 5 is 10. So I need to multiply each of these fractions till I get a denominator of 10. So with my first fraction, I need to multiply 2 by 5 to get it to be 10, and that means I also need to multiply my numerator by 5 to get it to be equivalent to 10. Looking at the second fraction, what do I need to multiply 5 by to get it to be 10? I need to multiply that by 2, and so in my numerator I'm also going to multiply that by 2. So let's do that and see what we've got. 5 times by 4x minus 5, which is now all over 10. Oh, luckily we've got a positive in the middle, so that makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it? All over 10 is equal to 4. So multiplying that out, I've got 20x minus 25 all over 10 plus 14x minus 20 all over 10, and that's equivalent to 4. So I'm going to write this all as a single fraction now, because they've got the same denominators. I can do that. 20x plus 14x, subtract 25, subtract 20, and that's now all over 10, and is still equivalent to 4. So that's going to give me 34x minus 45 all over 10, and is equal to 4. From this point here, if you sort of imagine that we never had that bit at the top, if I presented you with this question, hopefully most of you would be quite confident in how to go about it. So I'm going to draw my lines down here. So at the moment I've got that denominator of 10. I don't want that, so I'm going to multiply both sides by 10 to eliminate it. So if I times that by 10 with that divide by 10, they cancel out. So I'm left with 34x minus 45, and 4 times by the 10, that's going to give us on this side 40. Okay, I want to make x the subject, so I'm going to add 45 to both sides. So I get 34x is equal to 85. Okay, the next step then, I need to divide it by 34 to find out what x is on its own. So dividing it by 34, I get an answer of 2.5. So the value for x in this question is 2.5. You've solved the equation. And that's it. Have a go at the next one, and then I'll pause it and then I'll go through the answer. Okay, so you can try and have a go at this one for yourself, or perhaps just listen to me go through it and then try it for yourself afterwards. So now we're asked to solve the following equation. So it's similar to the last question in that we've still got numerical denominators, that means numbers at the bottom of the fraction, and we've still got it equivalent to something. Now it's just equivalent to 1, but we're still going to follow that same process. So the reason that I chose this question is that it just throws up this first part about finding the lowest common multiple. So if I want to find the lowest common multiple of 5 and 15, what number is in the 5 times table and in the 15 times table? The lowest number isn't going to be 5 times 15, which is 75. It is in fact just going to be 15 itself, because 5 can go into 15. So when I'm looking at, writing it as a single fraction, I can leave the first fraction as it is, because it already has that 15 in the denominator. So these two can stay exactly as they are. Looking to the second fraction, I need to get 5 to be equivalent to 15. So for that, I'm going to need to multiply it by 3. And that means also multiplying the numerator by 3. So I will have 4x plus 9 over 15, subtract 3 times by x minus 3 over 15. We can't take everything away just yet because, like I've said before, we need to be really cautious about this negative here. And that's equal to 1. So I've got 4x plus 9 over 15 minus, so 3x minus 9 over 15 is equal to 1. Excellent. So we've got those same denominators. But what we need to be mindful of again is we are subtracting everything after this point because of that subtraction between these two fractions. So I've got 4x subtract 3x. That 3x is positive. We don't write plus 3 every time, but if it just says 3x, that means it's positive. And then I've got a plus 9 from my first fraction. And again, I need to subtract negative 9. So if I'm subtracting negative 9, that means I'm going to be adding 9. We can write that as a single fraction now, so over 15, and that's equivalent to 1. So I'm left with x plus 18 all over 15 is equal to 1. And from here, again, hopefully you'll feel quite comfortable. So if I've got 15 in the denominator that I do not want, I'm going to multiply both sides by 15. So that gives me x plus 18 is equal to 15, because multiply and divide are going to cancel out, and then 1 times by 15 is 15. And then I need to subtract 18 from both sides to make x a subject. And so I'll get my final answer that x is equivalent to minus 3. And that is that question done. Okay, final question here, just to show that you can sometimes get questions that have got decimal answers. And because a lot of textbooks and questions online always end up with a nice whole number, sometimes if you do get a decimal answer, you feel that you've maybe done something wrong and you need to go back and check. But you can get decimal answers, and that's what we'll get in this question here. So let's begin and have a look. So first things first, I've got a denominator of 6 and 5. So the lowest common multiple of 6 and 5 is in fact just going to be 30. So as though I'd multiplied those two numbers together, and makes multiplying them quite easy. So here I've got to times this by 5 to get my denominator to be 30. And here I've got to times this by 6 to get my denominator to be 30. So writing that out, 5 brackets, 4x plus 1 all over 30, take away 6 bracket, x minus 2, again all over 30 is equal to 2. Multiplying out those numerators now, 20x plus 5 over 30, take away 6x minus 12 all over 30 is equal to 2. So now the bit where you take your time because of that negative in the middle, 20x subtract 6x. Sorry, I'm going to write the bracket there because it does help me focus on the fact I've got a negative. And then plus 5, subtract a negative 12. So subtracting a 12 that is negative is going to give me positive 12. Again, all over 30 and equivalent to 2. So going through now and simplifying my top line, I will get 14x plus 17 all over 30 is equal to 2. And now we're just going to go on to solve. So I am going to multiply both sides by 30. They're going to cancel out. And 2 times by 30 is going to give me 60. Subtracting 17 from both sides is going to give me 43. And then finally, use your calculators on this last part for the 43 divided by 14. So this is the answer that you sort of start to get on your calculator, something along the lines of this. If you're paying attention to the question, it does ask you to write it to 1 decimal place. So making sure that you do that, otherwise you'll lose marks. in exam conditions, it would be 3.1, because the first number after that one decimal place is bigger than 5, it's a 7. So 3.1, and I'd underline that to say that that's my final answer. Question done. Okay, so I'm just popping this here because I know that there is a question similar to this on the last one. I've just completely made this up out of thin air, but it was just to give you the starting point in a question like this. Let's say we had 3 separate fractions now that we had to write over a common denominator. What you would be looking to do is find the lowest common multiple of all 3 of those numbers. So 2 and 4 and 3. So what number do they all go into? The answer to that would be 12. So in this question, you would want to get all of your denominators to be 12. So here I'd be multiplying by 6. Here I'd be multiplying by 3. Here I'd be multiplying by 4. And then I would write all of them as a single fraction once I'd done all of the sort of necessary steps. So 6 times by 4x plus 1 over 12. So it would look something like this. Then you'd expand your brackets and start collecting similar terms. What's quite nice here is the fact that you've got positives between all of the fractions, so we don't really need to worry about any taken away. So this is what it would end up looking like if you had 3 fractions. So you'd get all your separate parts, collect all your similar terms, and then from there you'd carry on. So obviously multiplying both sides by 12, subtracting 5, and then dividing by 51. But as I say, I just wanted to give you a little heads up on how you do it if there were 3 fractions. Thanks for listening, guys. I hope you're all well.